George Bell is in the house with a surprise, but we'll begin the show with a conversation about education with one of our school board members and the school superintendent. Roll it, Kirk. Oh, he's already starting on me, even though we hadn't put him on camera yet. He's the superintendent of schools here in East Baton Rouge Parish, Mr. Lamont Cole, and with him, the District 8 representative, Emily Soule, and we want to talk about education. We're in December, the midway point for the school year that I think everyone would agree has been largely successful. It's been quiet. You guys have been making moves there, so I'll start with just the top of the wave question. How are things at the district now?
Oh, listen, I would say things are going extremely well. We have our internal challenges in terms of all of our students being able to perform at extremely high levels and working through processes to ensure we're putting systems in place to meet them at their academic point of need. And that's what the work should always be about. How do we help our students be successful, both on the academic side and social and emotionally? And so that's where we've been centering all of our direction and focus and making sure that we go to every school, particularly those schools where we recognize kids are struggling, and then figuring out how do we put systems in place to help them get better. And so that's really everything we've been focused on doing this first semester.
From your perspective as a member of the legislative body of public education here, the superintendent's been doing a lot in the way of reorging the operation and then focusing on efficiencies. But how's it been from your perspective, and what are you looking for?
Yeah, so I am the newest member of the board. I came on in March with a special election, and it has been such a privilege to get to be in the room. And I have had the experience of getting to see what is working well and where we can improve. And some of the things that I've been seeing that are working well is we have some amazing businesses in Baton Rouge that are connecting to the schools. We have some amazing principals, some amazing teachers. We have some great programs. We have connections with Baton Rouge Youth Coalition, Studyville, Kids Orchestra, so many great things. But we're not doing that at all of our schools. Not every kid is having access to the same quality high education. And so the board is really on a momentum track to begin to offer that to every single kid. And that's really what we're going to be looking for in 2025.
And I know that's got to be the goal from the top as well, is to make certain that you spread across the district the kind of quality that you want every child to have. And before I get to the next thing, let's lean in on that. What is a game plan between your office and the school board to try to get more of these resources to the kids in the district?
The first step is to speak to the community to find out exactly what they want in terms of what kids are interested in, where they live, and the schools they attend. Really got to engage community around that part of the conversation. And we can't make the decisions for them and then heap it upon them. We have to ask them what do they want, and then work with the community, work with the school board to implement exactly what they're saying they need. It's about choice, it's about access to opportunity, it's about access to resources to ensure kids are learning at extremely high levels. That's number one. Number two, when we find out what communities and families want for their children, assessing where the children are in terms of being able to receive that information, being able to receive the resources, and being able to receive the education. We have early childhood system, we have a K-12 system, then a postgraduate system that oftentimes isn't always connected. How do we connect those things to ensure kids are ready for kindergarten? So what is happening prior to kindergarten? What is happening in our early childhood system? So there's a lot of work being done there, and we're a partner in that work in the early childhood network. I think the first thing we have to do is determine what is a kindergartner is supposed to know and be able to do when they enter. Then when we determine that, make sure that's happening across the board at all of our early childhood facilities. That's the first step. The second step is to determine what is it along the way we want our children to be able to do at checkpoints, at the end of elementary, at the end of middle, and then more importantly at the end of high school. What do we want them to know and be able to do, and then how do we put systems in place to ensure they're able to do that based on the diverse learning needs of our students. And then once we do that, what is it that colleges are seeing from graduates when they enter college? Are they strong in literacy? Are they strong in numeracy? Can they operate? Can they function? Can they work collaboratively with their classmates? What is it that colleges need to see when they enter? Because we know what the workforce needs. We know what we want to see in a strong environment workforce.
I'm going to take a quick break and come back. We're doing a couple segments talking about education there. I'd like to talk with y'all about that workforce readiness component that comes from EBR Schools, but also how y'all are addressing truancy. I think the school system is one of the most essential parts of making our community more safe. And I'd like your perspective on that. Back to talk about that in just a moment. The esteemed superintendent of schools here in East Baton Rouge Parish and new school board member Emily Soule, representing District 8, having a conversation about education. You've seen academic growth in the district 3 years in a row. And the district has talked about how while that's good, it's not where you want to be. You're moving in the right direction, you're not there yet. I love that contextual attitude about it, that you don't celebrate because of the growth. It's not enough yet, let's get more. But on the other side of it, we do have a truancy issue here.
Correct.
So what are we doing to address that? And I'll start with this with Ms. Soule.
Yeah. Well, we are connecting with a lot of other agencies in town to be able to address that issue. For us as a school board, we set policy, we set the budget. And so one of the things that we're doing to address truancy is making sure that the schools that we're offering are schools that kids want to go to. So just recently I heard the president of the Bessie board, Ronnie Morris, say school needs to be the cool place that kids want to go. Like it needs to be somewhere that is worth getting up to spend your day. We need to have teachers in the classrooms. We need to be offering great programs. And while we are at some schools are offering amazing programs, which has been such a joy to get to see. Every child needs the option to have a world-class education. And so us as a board are working on our strategic plan. We'll actually be releasing a new strategic plan next month, January 2025.
Well, that'll be a reason to come back.
Yes, which will hopefully begin to see how we're going to be addressing truancy and a bigger issue being facilities that are good for kids, teachers in the classrooms, programs that are worth it. I want high school kids to come to school and know, like, hey, whether I'm choosing college or not choosing college, EBR schools are preparing me for what's next in life. And so that's what we're doing.
Mr. Superintendent?
I think, too, in order to understand where we are and what needs to happen, we have to go back and talk about what did happen. At one time, the school system was the only game in town. We had all of the information and data for every child in the parish. Currently, there are 4 systems in town and then a 5th if you talk about the charter school system in terms of the different types of charter schools. And sometimes the data sharing that needs to exist in terms of understanding where kids are, where they're supposed to be, and who's responsible for ensuring that they show up where they're supposed to be isn't as fluent as it should be. So we are working.
Who changes that?
Well, for me, it's my responsibility. If you have the capability, then you have to take the responsibility. So for me, I've taken a responsibility to reach out to the other systems, to reach out to the charter schools, and to say, how can we start a data sharing program where we identify where kids are, who's supposed to be in school, and then who's not. That's number one. But then number 2, as Ms. Soule said, making sure what children show up to is where they want to be. They need to have, and we need to ensure that there's a desire to want to be there. And so when we create good programming, good schools, safe places for kids to be, we then have to work with our partner agencies, the DA's office, Family and Children's Services, to ensure that we are reaching out to identifying where there are challenges, where there's a lack of resources, where there are food deficiencies, right? And where there are housing deficiencies. How do we support families to ensure that first kids are safe at home prior to them coming to school?
The system has so much money. And maybe it's not as much as you need to do this job. I would not pretend to be a subject matter expert, but when you've got north of $700 million all in, is it that that's not enough to get the job done, or is there a problem with the money getting to where you need it to go to do what the both of you are talking about?
It's not enough to get the job done, because priority number 1 is good teachers. Let's be clear, we have to have good teachers in the classroom. And we don't have enough money currently to pay our teachers what they deserve in terms of what the national average is and then what the regional average is in terms of having the best in the classroom. So when we have districts near us who are able to pay more, they're able to recruit the teachers, some of the best and the brightest,
Yeah.
into their systems. So until we're at a point where we can pay our teachers more, recruit the best and brightest to ensure that we have, because this is about people. This is not about program.
Right.
Get better people. The only way you make schools better, get better students or get better teachers. Get better teachers will recruit better students, because families want their children to be in environments with people they know, love, and care about them. And so that is the reality. So north of 700 million, we need to be north of 2 billion in order to pay people what they deserve to do this work in the way it needs to be done. That's a bold thing I said, right? Listen, teachers ought to be paid no less
No
than
doubt.
70 grand a year to
no,
do this work.
I don't think anyone should argue that teachers are on par in value to a community with law enforcement.
That's right.
You have to look at teachers as so essential to the future. $2 billion. Okay. All right. So
Yeah. Also, you know, the board sets the budget.
Yeah.
We approve the budget. And this most recent budget, we actually have done a much better job of making sure that it's student focused. But we can do better with what we do have. So some of the things that Superintendent Cole has been talking about with the community is that we are going to be consolidating some schools.
I wanted to ask y'all about that.
We are going to be doing a better job with what we do have.
Yeah.
And so that's really the first step as we hopefully continue to grow our budget. We can do better with what we have.
Yeah, I love the 30 seconds. I love the aggression of what you're trying to do after the first of the year. When is the strategic plan going to be released?
January.
Early
Early
January?
January.
Okay,
Early January.
so I'd like to get y'all to come back to talk about the plan. And look, I said this to you off the air, I said on the air, the first half of the year has been good because you've been out of the news and there is an excitement around EBR Schools that we haven't had for some time. So let's hope it stays the same way. Superintendent of Schools, Lamont Cole,
Yes, sir.
$2 billion. New school board member, Emily Sule. I appreciate y'all. See y'all next month, right?
I'll be
Yes,
here.
we'd love to be here.
All right,
don't
so
rise.
if you like the show, here's where you can catch it. Download the WAFB app. You can catch it early streaming on Friday. It's on WBXH Friday night, 7 o'clock. Replaying Saturday at 3 p.m. George Bell is next. Well, one of my favorite guests is here, and he's got a special treat for y'all. We'll get to that in just a moment. George Bell, CEO of the Capital Area United Way, where I'm a proud board member of this prestigious nonprofit. Before we get to George Bell and friends at the end of the segment, I would like to talk about what's happening in the region, specifically the Alice population here. Tell people what Alice is and then where we are.
Well, first, thank you for having me back on, Clay. This is one of my favorite places to be when it comes to sharing information. And thank you for shining a light on Alice and the Alice population. ALICE is an acronym that stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, but Employed. So I like to use the comparison. When you think of someone who's working, who's showing up day in and day out every day to work, but at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, they don't earn enough to cover the basic living expenses that are required. That's ALICE. And what is so important about ALICE is that they are among the most vulnerable households in our community, because all it takes is one missed paycheck, one flat tire or transmission to go out that can send them into this downward financial spiral. So that to me is that has been our North Star at Capital Area United Way. The ALICE population represents 50% of our total households in East Baton Rouge Parish.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the thing about the Alice population is because they make what they make, they don't qualify for some of the assistance that's out there right now.
You hit the nail on the head. That is what makes it very troublesome for them. And you know, and the other thing is that navigating where to go and how to find help when you need it is a challenge.
Yeah.
So I always like to make sure that people know about 211.
Yep.
211 is a connector of resources, people to resources, and whenever someone has a need in our area, they can call 211 and be connected to the resources that are available in the community for that particular issue that they're calling about.
I know that there is a group of organizations right now that's talking about 211. We were in a meeting together where there was a discussion about that.
For sure.
And it really is the beginnings of a collaboration between all of these partners who are touching these different areas, but using 211 as a conduit to get information to the community. I think that's going to be big in 2025.
Well, it will be, and we're working to better coordinate the delivery of those services, because that's one of the challenges we have heard, or the issues we've heard, is that people just don't know how to navigate those you know, that wide array of support that's available out there. So having 211 is part of the solution, but creating a more coordinated delivery model for our community is really what's needed.
Before I get to George Bell and Friends and the concert next week, I want to ask your top goal for 2025. What's the United Way's target on the wall for the coming year?
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that 2025 represents our 100th year of consistent support to this community. So we're going to make a big deal of that. But I'd have to say that it's continuing to lift the need for support for not just United Way, but for other nonprofits that are on the front line of serving our community. Clay, post-pandemic fundraising has been a challenge.
Yeah.
And we really need to lift up our nonprofit organizations to make sure they have the resources to continue delivering those services.
Well, look, I'm looking forward to it in next year. Dina's going to bring you that horn here in the C-Suite. Now, you could get it online, WAFB.com. You can get the app. And on the next episode,
Thank you, Dean.
Dylan Moses is going to be on the show. And by the way, he brought his brother Keelan. I didn't know Keelan was going to be here. So we're going to go up and record that interview today that you will see on Monday on the C-Suite. George Bell and Friends. The concert is next Friday, the 13th. It's going to be at the Manship Theater. Starts at 7 o'clock?
7:30.
7:30. And this is a little bit of what you will be given. My man. Let's give him a round of applause in the studio here, guys. Alyssa, how much time is left in the segment? All right, 50 seconds. So again, next Friday, 7:30 p.m., the Manship Theater. It is George Bell and Friends, a holiday concert, a phenomenal display of talent.
And Saturday.
And Saturday,
Yeah.
the 12th annual, right?
12th annual.
12th annual, man. Fantastic. And there you can see on the website some information about George Bell and Friends. And man, so talented every time, and just coming in and doing it. And tickets are still available though, right? Because they go fast.
Yes, they are. They
All
are.
right, both nights?
Both nights. Yeah.
All right, y'all. Up next, we'll introduce you to Dylan, talk a little bit about the C-Suite that we're going to record after we finish here, and we'll do that next.
All right.
Been a fantastic show so far, and look at this is what linebackers look like, guys. So Dylan Moses is going to be on the podcast. We're already scheduled to have him, and Keelan, his brother, showed up, and I didn't know he was going to be here, so we'll have them both on. News in the Moses family this week: your little brother just committed to LSU. That's going to make that Bama LSU game conversation a lot interesting. So first of all, congratulations, young fella. How do you
I
feel?
really appreciate it. Honestly, I feel relieved. You know, the recruiting process is nothing to play with, especially as a young child. You know, it's a lot to take in, and honestly, I'm just glad it's over. You know, I have a huge burden lifted off my shoulders, and you know, I feel free in a way. So you know, I feel really good, and I'm glad about staying at home.
Well, you went through it as the youngest recruited athlete ever in the state of Louisiana. I'm sure you gave him some advice about the process, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Whenever I spoke to him about his process, you know, I just told him to take his time, have fun, and you know, enjoy the experience.
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting, and we were talking about things that he's going to do, that your degree is going to be in communications with a potential minor in psychology.
Yes, sir.
Love that. So we're going to go upstairs and record the next edition of the C-Suite. We'll talk with Dylan about his journey at the University of Alabama, in the NFL, what he's hoping to, there he is right there on the screen, looking like an avatar, and what he did in football, and the wisdom he's given the young man to his left, his little brother, about navigating these waters in college football. Dylan, it's a whole different game right now than it was back when you were at Alabama. There's so much more to think about.
Oh yeah, for sure. Not only that, what's on the field, but you know, with NIL and you know, kids becoming their own commodity, their own business, you know, it has changed a lot.
I'm intrigued to find out about the advice that you give him to avoid the sharks that are in the water. That's my biggest concern for some of these young people, is the sharks that want to take advantage of young people, because now the money is not that delayed. It's money out there right now. And so between Tamika and Ed and you, I know it's going to be a really good support system around it. So that's the C-Suite that you can catch dropping on Monday. On next week's show, District Attorney Tony Clayton with the 18th JDC is going to be here to talk a little bit about what he's doing with public safety in his areas, and he's reappointed to the Southern Board. He'll talk about that. We'll also chat about the aftermath of the elections. Liam's going to be on to talk about the mayor's race. And Gordy Rush is coming here to take responsibility for jinxing my 49ers this year. I can't stand him, but he's got to be accountable to that. And we'll do that with him next week. Y'all have a great weekend. Go Jags!